Welcome to this kickoff meeting here. This is something that I'm sure everyone knows, probably long overdue to be able to start this, but the Township, the Board of Commissioners have made a commitment to this program, which is outstanding. And I know the time in working with Sarah and Robin here has been very enlightening to myself, to actually where I've gone out and bought a battery-operated lawnmower that works just perfectly. It's in, I think most of my yard is lit by solar lighting now, so what a difference that makes. But this is one of the things that's probably key, and I think from the board's perspective too, is the communication with the community is going to be key and critical of how that dialogue takes place. And the Board of Commissioners are committed to this program here and look forward to working with you, and I will make our staff available to all your needs and requirements as needed. Thank you very much for being here and being part of this.
Thank you, Bob. So I think I'll speak for Robin for a minute, if I may. We're really excited to get this started. It's sort of a miracle, because about a year ago we were visioning this process, and the fact that it's actually starting is really exciting. So we thought, because some of you may not know each other, we thought we would ask you to introduce yourself, and what else was it?
And just what their connection is.
Yeah, and what your connection is and what you hope to see. So Ruth, why don't you start? You're on the left.
There, okay. Hi, I'm Ruth McDermott-Levy. I am an associate professor at Villanova University's College of Nursing, and I'm also the director of the Center for Global and Public Health there. And my research area and teaching area is primarily environmental health. So I'm very thrilled that Radnor is doing this and to support the health of the community.
Good evening, I'm Katrina Ogilby. I've been a resident of Radnor Township for over 30 years, involved in lots of environmental initiatives. And I do have a master's in environmental education, and I'm thrilled to get this project started.
Hello, I'm Allie Bauer, and I go to Radnor High School, and I am president of an environmental club called Action Earth.
Hello, I'm Ruth Mooney, and I've been a resident of Radnor Township for about 30 years, and I've been interested in environmental matters for longer than that. I am a nurse, and I see our environmental crisis as the leading health problem in the country today, and indeed in the world. So I'm hoping that we can make some changes and do something about that.
Yeah, hi, I'm Mark Muller. I am a senior engineering manager at a local aerospace company, and I'm also pursuing my graduate studies at Villanova in sustainable engineering. So very much looking forward to trying to contribute to this very important and serious challenge and try to bring some, I think what I bring is some systems thinking to it.
Do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure.
Did you already say who you are?
No.
Okay.
Hi, I'm Robin Mann. I'm a roughly 30-year resident in Radnor Township, active with the Sierra Club locally and nationally, and I'm thrilled about this Ready for 100 campaign coming here to Radnor, and I'm just really looking forward to seeing how we can shape the plans for Radnor to really engage the community in bringing clean energy decision-making local, and it's going to be a great conversation.
And I'm Sarah Pilling, and I'm a member of the EAC, and I'm ex officio on your committee. Really, your go for anything you want, any information you want. I will be there to help you. I am extremely concerned about what we face in the future weather-wise, and I think we need to get to it to have the impact be as least serious for Radnor Township. The major challenge is going to be educating the public to understand and to take the baby steps to change their direction just enough. so that we can avoid some disasters, and so we can embrace clean energy, alternative energy, which I think will be our saving. Like Ruth, the pair of you, I'm very concerned about health and the health implications. So I'm thrilled that this has happened. So you want to?
Sure. So I think you all will have received in the thumb drive that Sarah shared with all of you. We, as this Ready for 100 team, which is a group of people who volunteered to join us in promoting the campaign here, we figured we would provide a little bit of draft guidance for you in terms of how you launch. And so we came up with a recommended purpose and outcomes that the team would seek to achieve, and then just a very brief description of the process. So I can just review that now if you like. I don't know if you all have that material with you, but it's not in this packet for tonight. So we can start with the purpose, and that is to guide the planning and community engagement process to put Radnor Township on the path to achieve its Ready for 100 goals of 100% clean, renewable energy in the community, community-wide, transitioning to 100% clean, renewable electricity by 2035, and 100% renewable energy for heat and transportation by 2050. And those goals are in the resolution that was approved by the commissioners. So the outcomes that we thought were the ones that the Green Team would want to focus on would be to issue a request for proposals for an energy transition plan that will encompass near-term municipal energy savings opportunities, as well as the transitioning of the Radnor community as a whole to efficient use of 100% clean renewable energy. And we're suggesting a time frame of mid-July to come up with that request for proposals. And as you know, there are some examples that Jim Wiley will talk about to work from. Secondly, a selection process. Conduct a selection process for a planner to develop an energy transition plan to be completed by completed by Earth Day 2020, and that maximizes energy efficiency and affordability. Third, an inclusive planning process is designed to ensure broad Radnor Township community engagement. An engagement effort is conducted with neighboring township officials on potential collaboration on energy transition planning. Jim will speak a little bit about that as well. A Radnor Township budget allocation for the planning process is prepared and recommended, and mid-July is a good time frame for that. A group of community stakeholders is identified to serve in an advisory capacity and to participate through early adoption, support for community outreach initiatives, et cetera. And just a note about that, we're aware that there are some community stakeholders. In discussions with Bob, there's some people he feels that he can invite to serve in an advisory capacity, but wouldn't necessarily have the time to commit to being part of the Green Team, but could be very useful. An example would be someone from Mainline Health.
Brandywine.
Yeah, Brandywine Realty, Penn Med. So those are just a couple of suggestions. But he is interested in contributing to trying to recruit that team. And potentially someone from, in addition, someone from the administration at Villanova or one of the other educational institutions. And then finally, the Ready for 100 team would develop and begin implementation of a community education and engagement plan approved by the Green Team. So our suggestion to you all is that we could be a resource in helping to, design a community engagement process, come up with some presentation ideas, and work to assist you by drafting that for your review would be our thought. And
And you should feel if you have a need for another member of your green team with particular expertise, go ahead and let us know and we will draft them.
oh, yeah, that's another purpose for this meeting is to discuss that, who else needs to be part. So then the process is just to convene, to map out some roles and responsibilities for the team. If you want to, try and have some subgroups tackle some aspects of this, to develop a work plan and timeline, and to form that advisory committee, and to coordinate with us. So that's basically what we laid out in your in what was sent to you. And I know we have a couple of people who've joined us, so maybe we can.
I know Dan
hear from
is
them.
part of our committee. Do you want to introduce yourself, Dan?
Dan Burnham from Central Baptist Church. I'm a physiologist by training, but a resident of Radnor.
Wonderful.
And Mr. Barr has joined us.
Bill Barr is a member of Central Baptist Church as well. He was present for the original vote to go where he did.
Wonderful. Great. So I think what we wanted to do next was invite Jim Wiley to give us a little bit of the broader context and also talk about his experience with the work that he's guiding in Westchester and the surrounding communities.
Is this on? Yes?
Yes.
Yes.
Thanks, Robin. Thanks, Sarah. And thanks to this green team. Can I start by asking a question? What is the green team? Is it is that what Radnor calls its environmental advisory committee, or is it a subcommittee of the EAC?
It's a subcommittee of the EAC.
But it's an official committee
It's an
of the township.
official committee.
not a-
It's on the
not a
website.
Friends of thing.
Yes.
Okay.
But appointed
Great.
specifically for the Ready for 100.
Oh, okay, excellent. Now I know who I'm talking to. Now, who are you looking at? So my name is Jim Wiley. I'm the volunteer chair for the Southeast Pennsylvania group, which is the greater Philadelphia area. And I have been leading a number of Ready for 100 teams in the greater Philadelphia area, roughly organized by county, but our targets are municipalities, right? At the current time, we have 17 townships or boroughs that have passed resolutions. Not Philadelphia, but that's kind of a whole nother fish, right? And you already know this, 2 in Delaware County, 7 in Chester County, 8 in Montgomery County, and a whole bunch of other municipalities that are interested and just following along. Maybe they think the resolution isn't the right thing for them, but they agree with the goals and they're certainly paying attention to what we're doing. I guess feel free to stop me and ask me a question if I'm not going the direction you want me to go. This process started in Chester County in the fall of 2017 when 3 boroughs passed a resolution. And then the elected officials in those boroughs got together and said, now what? We each do this ourselves? Do we do it together? How would we do it if we did it together? So we formed this committee called the Chester County Clean Energy Leaders, which was 4 or 5 mayors, a bunch of supervisors, EAC volunteers, and Ready for 100 volunteers trying to help facilitate it. And we had like monthly meetings, and we just educated ourselves about what to do next, what was planning, what was comprehensive planning, what was aggregated buying of electricity, what was energy management. We invited professionals to come in, and mostly on Skype or Zoom calls, and we learned a lot. And the bottom line of what we learned was, this is complicated shit. So we decided this isn't something you give your township manager to do. It's not something you give a volunteer to do unless this is a very talented in this area kind of volunteer. And if you have one of those, that's great. Actually, Westchester had one of those, but she was also the mayor of Westchester. She works for an energy analysis company. So she had to really recuse herself from this whole, because it might look bad if she recommended spending tax money on something that would promote her business. So we started off by looking at developing three RFPs, requests for proposals. One was for the Borough of Westchester to go first and say, let's solicit for an energy plan, just for the borough, just for the 1.2 square miles of Westchester Borough. Also, we looked at doing an RFP to do aggregated electricity buying for municipal uses. Get together the municipalities that had raised their hand and say this would be a way to pay for that planning. The third one was to do regional energy planning. And the natural fit there was the Westchester Area Council of Governments, which is not quite a regional planning commission, but an entity that was put together initially it was put together to organize a community cable TV station that was bigger than the borough, right? So that's what they did. Then they did a fire department that went between municipalities. Then they did a police department and water treatment. So it was a convenient entity for the 6 municipalities that were there. So we, Ready for 100 volunteers, proposed it to the COG, the Council of Governments, for this, and they said, sounds good. So they eventually issued the request for proposal, got back 10 very nice proposals, and we evaluated them and picked, had a process for doing that, and picked a winner. And so now we are, I forgot to mention, that proposal came with a price tag. So the greater Westchester area is about 100,000 people. There's a university and QVC are the big highlights of that area, in Exton Square Mall. The bids were from about 65,000 to about 90,000. We did not pick the lowest bid. We picked what we felt would be the best quality one, and presented that to the Council of Governments, which is representative from each of the 6 municipalities. And they agreed that the best proposal was a company from Massachusetts called Cadmus Group. They had done similar community-wide energy transition plans across the country, the most recent being Buncombe County, North Carolina, which is the county that Asheville, North Carolina is in. In fact, they're about 6 months ahead of us, so they're just finishing up that proposal, and I'm anxious to take a look at that. So that's where we are. We picked them, and we decided to split up the costs of that $75,000 by population. So the higher population township would pay the bigger cost, and the more sparsely populated would pay less. And each township had to ratify that decision and write the check and put some skin in the game. I was confident that we'd have at least 5. Chester County flood alert. We'll ignore that. I might stay here tonight.
Okay.
Okay. Where was I? Okay, so each township council had to ratify this decision and pony up the money. And I thought it was good that everybody had to have some skin in the game. We didn't get a grant to do this, but we split it up 6 ways. And everybody ratified. All 6 were in. I made presentations in a couple of them, but for the most part, it was very well received, and through the community support and testifying that this would be a good thing, everybody got into it. Okay, so where are we now? We're just starting the process. We had our first, we called it a pre-kickoff meeting last night with representatives from each of the, so we had a few elected officials, we had township managers, we had staff, We had EAC members, and we had people like me, volunteers. And we had a very good discussion, about 13 people in the room, about what roles we'll play and how we'll engage this professional company, and what we saw as our objectives. What did we want to come out of this process with? And we went around the table and we had 13 different objectives, right? Some elected officials said, I want to make sure we're not spending any taxpayer money. Or I want to make sure we find out what we need to allocate in next year's budget. My vision was that we find a way that my outcome of this process would show feasibility. We all want to do this. And I think, those of us that have work on this every day see the examples across the country and know that it is feasible. But is it feasible economically? Is it feasible without setting mandates? Is it feasible without raising taxes? In Pennsylvania, we don't have any apples to apples examples of a township in Pennsylvania with Pennsylvania kinds of regulations. So it's going to be really great to have somebody that has the broader scope that can pick best practices from around the country and see which ones would apply to southeastern Pennsylvania and see what we get. It's going to start with, as Robin talked about, selecting key stakeholders and doing intake interviews and seeing what their vision is, what their concerns are, and what their goals would be for energy transition. And I mentioned a few of them: QVC, the university, the school district, Lexington Square Mall, homeowners associations, renters, and that's going to be the big challenge, is how do you measure the concerns and objectives of Joe Schmo, homeowner or renter? How do you pick a representative person? So we've been talking about creating surveys and soliciting that. Cadmus is going to organize what they call a visioning workshop. We're going to hold it in a high school auditorium. I think it'll be later in June that they'll help run with us to try to get public input. Let me pause for a second, see if there's any questions. Sir.
Yeah, what is Cadmus projecting? What's their period of performance to produce a deliverable? When do you think they'll be
what's the schedule?
done? Yeah, correct.
So actually our RFP laid that out, and we asked for a 4-month, thinking that we would start in April. We want to be done in August so that the September budget process would start then. There's been some rethinking of that since then. We didn't get our act together and have our kickoff meeting in May. We approved this process in April. We just had our pre-kickoff meeting last night. So government moves slowly sometimes. So, and there was also some talk about, well, let's not rush this and make them adhere to that schedule that the RFP set. Let's talk about what it's really going to take. And like I said before, there should be some understanding of what kind of budget item opportunities there would be for 2020 in September, even if the whole report's not done yet. So I think the answer to your question is going to be 5 months. I wanted to say that what I'm describing is an example. So I talked about those 3 RFPs. In the end, we only did the one, thinking that the regional plan would subsume certainly a component one. There's no reason for Westchester to do their own if Greater Westchester is doing one. And I would like them to consider aggregated electricity buying, but now the attitude is, well, let's wait and see what this plan comes up with, see if that's in there. So fine, if they don't feel a need to save money in order to spend money, who am I? Let me also talk about northern Chester County, the Phoenixville area. They're taking a different approach. They have an organization called the Phoenixville Regional Planning Commission. They happen to be in the middle of their comprehensive plan update cycle. So they have 2 out of the 5 municipalities in that region. 2 of them have passed resolutions, and the 3 other ones are talking about it. So they're looking at this trying to put it in the context of their comprehensive plan. And their committee that's doing the plan is discussing about whether and how to do a specific energy transition plan, but they're putting stuff in their comprehensive plan. In Montgomery County, they have 8 past resolutions and probably another 8 that are thinking about it. They are hosting, they being the Ready for 100 Montgomery County team, are hosting what they're calling a celebration / what's next event at the end of June 29th, in which they're going to make a big deal about awarding certificates to every township representative that passed a resolution, flash some cameras, take some pictures, and then have kind of a workshop about what's next. How can we work together? How can we do this? So, and those townships are kind of scattered around Montgomery County. So there's not a logical regional planning commission or council of governments that can lead the way to even issue the RFP on behalf of these several governments. The county planning commission has been very supportive, and he's going to be at this meeting, but he has declined to step up and say, I'll lead the way to do this group effort. So I think one of the townships is going to have to be there's some fancy word for it, agency that issues the RFP and can actually write the contract, and they're going to need memorandums of understanding from, so that each of the townships kind of say from the get-go that they're in. No matter where this process goes, they're likely in, although there won't be a price tag known yet. Ask me a question. Yes, sir.
So, economies of scale.
Is your mic on, Dan?
Economies of scale. The story you're telling me is one of a patchwork of successes geographically. It sounds like you have townships within a county or even a whole county endorsing this idea. But is it your hope that the more townships within a county that get onto this idea of, at least at the township level, getting electricity, green electricity, that the actual cost of that electricity could be reduced because the customer base is increased? So making it more attractive to the next township or county, and eventually to individual customers.
Absolutely. Aggregating buying power is a key tool in this whole process.
Okay.
But to respond to your patchwork thing, so Westchester area are contiguous, 6 contiguous municipalities. The Phoenixville area are contiguous. Montgomery County is patchwork. Chester County or Delaware County seems to be going in a patchwork direction. I've talked to somebody at the Delaware Valley Regional Planning Commission who has suggested that if 8 or a dozen townships in Montgomery County were to go in on doing this planning, they would consider it a regional plan. It wouldn't be a checkerboard plan per se, but those 8 would be, taking the lead and doing it on behalf of the whole region. I mean, there's no reason not to.
And the plans that have been endorsed and some implemented in the southeast Pennsylvania, they all deal with municipal electricity, that is township buildings, public work plants. Would it be the federal schools?
Right. So there are no plans yet. right?
Okay.
Westchester is the flagship,
Okay,
and we are just starting the process of engaging with stakeholders, getting feedback or input from the community to see how we want to make this plan, and that's what Cadmus is going to lead us through for this next 5 months. Will it have a municipal component? Absolutely. So we hope, the RFP asks for the output to be organized as short, medium, and long-term actionable steps, including what the community can do, what municipal governments can do, what education entities can do.
okay. So these would, I mean, the easiest thing would be the publicly run facilities would be switched to green energy. And then the private sector after that, I would think.
So if you look at your resolution that was passed, it says renewable energy means, you know, wind, solar, water,
Right,
and locally produced renewable energy is prioritized above national wind, say. And that's saying it's better to invest in rooftop solar or geothermal and stuff like that that's local than to buy RECs from Texas.
right, okay.
I don't know if that helps answer your question.
Well, again, I see that most easily implemented
Sure.
on a public building than individuals. I
Yep.
think in terms of implementation would have the most effect in that scale than having to go after individual.
Right, and recognize
community.
we're talking about a 15-year plan
Yeah.
for electricity.
Yeah,
So,
Okay.
yeah, if we had to do this next year, absolutely, we would all switch to buying green
Right.
electricity. But if we have a plan to make investments, community solar is going to come this year. I think that would be a real opportunity for, basically, it's aggregated buying a share into a local small utility scale solar.
right. Now, individuals have a choice every time they get a letter from P-code as to who their electric supplier is.
Yes.
And this has been in place for years. I've always chosen a green supplier, and I'm assuming I'm getting green energy out of my wall. Is this something that is not, that would be encouraged at the individual level, or is there even a more ambitious goal of taking the individual choice out of the equation and providing green energy to communities, period?
Right. I encourage you to get a professional opinion about that question.
Yeah.
My own opinion is I would rather see municipalities go together to get a very, save 10%, 20% on the electricity bill and take that 10, 20% savings and invest in local real energy, whether it's green or not. Because a rec from Texas is not really inspiring new renewable energy.
Jim, if I could just also add, I mean, we see the opportunity in Radnor to really invest heavily in energy efficiency, particularly, or beginning with the municipal facilities where there's a whole lot of opportunity. And so, and also to really educate the residents about the opportunities for energy savings, just with the, in addition to purchasing clean electricity, but hopefully purchasing less. So the efficiency is going to be a big piece, I would imagine, of the transition plan that you'll be seeking to have prepared for Radnor or for a group of Delaware County communities.
And you have in your thumb drive the heat maps of the various township buildings that PICO has prepared for us. And some of them, particularly here, the township building, PICO has not only shown how they use how we've used the electricity and the total amount, but what the township building the building and the people who work here can do to save, they project a 30% reduction in the energy bill. We've also done that for the Public Works, for the Sulpizio Gym, and for the library. So that's tools you already have in your basket. Also, we have definitely 2 tabling events to begin to educate the general public, the individual. One is on Highland Avenue. They have a block party the 24th of August, and Dr. Howard is very excited about us coming to that community and educating the people as to the possibilities of becoming more efficient. And we're definitely going to be at the Fall Festival on North Wayne Avenue. That's already been cleared. The township's going to provide the table, and they'll print the information for us to just begin the informal dialogue with residents. So, and we're reaching out to the high school. It's not quite as easy as I hoped, but so you have some tools in your basket already. You're not starting with a blank slate. We want you to know that.
Jim, I had a question. In your RFP, did you include conservation efforts? Because my feeling is if we just switch from one source of energy to another and don't decrease our energy use overall, we're not going to really make the impacts that we want to see.
Absolutely, absolutely. That was a requirement, and that's a tool to get to where we want to go. And I know that Cadmus has experience in doing that.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, I wanted to get back to the idea of better buying power. And you mentioned the Delaware Valley Planning Authority. Is that one of the stakeholders we should consider reaching out to leverage them to try and solve this problem of filling in the patchwork and getting some momentum? Absolutely, and I can give you contacts for people there, and 2 programs that you can read up on their website are, they have I forget what the fancy name they call it, but basically it's a municipal program to buy LED streetlights, right, in bulk. Maybe Radnor's already done it.
No, Radnor hasn't. To let you know, it was at Upper Dublin High School last year, and there were 31 municipal entities there. So they were crowdfunding. And think of supply and demand, what the price went down to. Radnor was invited, but it was the end of July, and Radnor has this thing about not doing a whole lot in the summer.
I think it's Ambler Borough. If you go to their website, they have an example. Ambler Borough cut their electricity for streetlights from $80,000 a year to $10,000 a year. Another program they have is a thing called Soul Smart, which is a national program to get everybody's solar permitting kind of the same, so that contractors don't have to figure out every township's different permit process. Let me contribute a couple other things I thought of while Sarah was talking. One is, yes, efficiency first, but 2019 is the last year for federal solar rebates of the 30%, and then it starts going down unless Congress decides to re-up it. But as it stands right now, there's an opportunity this year, and our volunteers have organized this thing called Solarize Southeast PA, which is basically an invitation to join a club of putting solar. If you have a house that's appropriate for putting solar panels on, this is a great way to do it. Go in with this club, and they'll get a group discount from a buyer. They put out the RFP. I was on the review committee, and for Delaware, I believe it is Lumina Solar. And as you get, if you get 10 people, you get this discount. You get 20, you get 40, you get 100, you get an even bigger discount. And the other thing was Ready for 100 Volunteer Army has organized 5 support teams to help various municipalities in different stages, right? For those that haven't passed resolutions, we have a team tracking the best of class in terms of resolution language. Planning, we're watching all, collecting different plans that come along and making a repository of those, taking action, filling this toolbox of all kinds of stuff like solarized, like this LED light bulbs. Municipal policy, what policies can municipalities take? We're tracking those. Public outreach is the fifth one. Yeah. So if you guys want to contribute to those or keep track of them, it's on our Ready for 100 website. Okay.
Is there any way that you could share some of those RFPs with us?
Absolutely.
Just as a template, that would be great.
So
Thanks.
that is in your thumb drive, the
Okay, I didn't get that
Westchester.
far, the thumb drive. Okay, thank you. Perfect.
And I guess that would be the one that you all ended up going with, as it wasn't the Westchester only, it was the collective. Yeah. So we felt that would be a very useful tool. Obviously, it'll have to be adapted for if it's Radnor or if it's a larger group, and also to try and probably you'll want to front load more of the municipal efficiency planning, to be able to reap some of those savings up front that can then be turned into further planning or investment.
And know that in Delaware County, right now, it's Concord, Haverford Township, and Radnor Township. Tredyffrin is not in Delaware County, but the heads of EAC go to Wayne Press, and their addresses happen to be Wayne, although they live in Radnor, they live in Tredyffrin, and they're very interested. They're actively in the process, and so is Newtown Township. So we're not sitting up on the pinnacle with nobody below us.
And Media and Swarthmore.
And Swarthmore and Media, yeah. So it's coming. It's sort of like a stone gathering moss, but the Tredyffrin Township people and the Newtown Township people are very interested in this developing a regional thing, even though Tredyffrin is not in Delaware County. So we're not alone.
Well, and I would just add, I think now that there is a green team being formed, we're sort of at a point of having a more structured conversation with some of those communities about how to explore the cooperation.
At some point, could we have a joint session with the, meeting between the different Delaware County entities?
Sounds.
I'm fixated on the
sounds
better
great.
buying power and trying to fill in the
Yeah.
patchwork. Sorry about that.
It sounds great, and I think we're happy to help explore who to talk to and how to facilitate those conversations or a gathering or however that would take place.
So in Chester County, we repeatedly reached out to the Chester County Planning Commission and said, hey, your title says Planning Commission. We want to do planning. We want to do it for whoever wants to join this club. And they rebuffed us. We haven't taken no for an answer, and elections are powerful, so that may change, but I encourage you to reach out to Delaware County if you guys have any hope of doing that.
Our state rep, Jennifer Lamar, she is very involved with the township. She would be great to have on this,
She knows about it because when we passed the resolution, the next day I contacted Mary Gay Scanlon and Jennifer and Dalen Leach. So they all know what we're doing and they're very supportive.
Yeah, that would be great.
Yeah. And the Green Team should know that the Ready for 100 Delaware County does meet monthly down in Swarthmore. And we're always happy 7:30 to 9 at the Borough Hall in Swarthmore. so that questions can be answered and thought processes can be begun. We're not doing this in isolation.
And let's not forget Greg Vitale in that.
Right.
Okay.
Thank you,
Thanks,
Jim.
Jim.
Thank you. I'm sorry, I have a question about the resources on the thumb drive. So other public buildings I'm thinking of are the schools. Is utility data available for those as well?
We've, Colleen Price is on the EAC, and she's been approaching the school district about solar panels. I don't know where it is. Just today, I got notice from Robin from Ready for 100 for a webinar for the school districts. So they have a different process.
Okay.
And it goes to the facility committee, and then it goes to the body of the whole. I know I sent it to Ally today. It's a piece of Radnor Township that still needs to be brought in under the tent. But I'm hoping that as they see this develop, particularly with this township building, that they'll become more alert to it and understand. Some of it's pretty dramatic. We did Sulpizio Gym, and although it's closed now because, again, the floor seems to have been damaged, we discovered that they had 4 separate thermostats, none of which were in a locked cage, so it was open to everybody's whims, and the lights were who came in, who turned them off. So we came up with probably $3,000 worth of improvements, wireless thermostats and body-sensitive light switches, which would solve half their problems. So some of this is not really complicated. We have an association through Ready for 100. Steve Clark in Haverford Township, who's an engineer with PICO. He's the one we met with Bob and got Bob on board, who engineered the heat maps, which are also on your thumb drive. And he's sort of corralled a guy from PICO to come in and, at your direction, see if Mark Binder won't come for a meeting to talk to people about energy audits. We've discovered that normally it's a $25 charge, but in areas who really can't afford that, and there's a decision as to how they can be done for free. I got $40 worth of light bulbs, and it cost me $50 for what I needed to make my home more energy efficient and to drop my energy bill. So those could be 2 of the educational pieces, changing your provider and an audit to begin to educate the public. For instance, a friend through our garden wrote me this week, and so I sent him a brochure. It's over there on the table that a gal from Lower Merion developed, and he wrote me back and said, I don't know why I didn't think of this years ago. So he's going to switch his energy provider, whether it goes into collective, but it's in his mind now that there are things that he can do. So there are a lot of resources. It's a question of organizing.
Well, and going back to the school district, Ally, my understanding is that Action Earth is having some conversations with the administration, right?
Yes, and I just wanted to add onto what Sarah said earlier about Colleen Price. We met with her last year, and specifically, she thought a good starting point would be adding lights outside where sports teams practice, making that solar energy, testing it out with that, because that's not the solar energy that's sort of with the school all day. It's more of something that we can experiment with. And she said if that works out really well, they would be very open to putting solar panels on more of the high school. And then I also wanted to add, I don't know if you guys know this, but next year there's going to be a new principal at Radnor High School. And this year and for the past years, the principal, I've been in communication with him, and he was very receptive to all of the environmental issues that we have proposed. And for example, we got a community garden this year, and he was very interested in that. I told him about Ready 100. He was very interested in that. And I'm hoping that the principal next year is just as receptive. And I wanted to make sure that you guys know that the principal that we have right now is not actually leaving. He's just being promoted to a higher position in the township.
Great. That's why we have you here.
Important, leading that effort there. We just thought that perhaps we do have until 8, or if we need it. But we wanted to just suggest that you have a bit of a conversation about a couple of things. First, what other additional members and skill sets would you want to add to the green team, if any? And secondly, in terms of organizing yourselves, just frequency and what's the most appropriate thing. And I don't know if there is an opportunity for additional conversations planning-wise, but I'm assuming that some email communications are going to work fine. And of course, that's something to be discussed. And then I know Bob is offering to have some township staff be resources. It's not sure if they'll be joining you at meetings, but anyway, sorting that out. But anyway, those are some of the thoughts we had about next steps.
One of the things that I'd like to talk about is the height restriction that Villanova is currently facing. I know that that there was a suggestion sometime earlier to put solar panels on their parking garage, and they're at the height restriction, so that would have to be addressed. And I think Penn Medicine is another place that is at the height restriction but could add solar panels. So that might be something that we want to consider. It would take a change in regulations at the township level.
I was just saying, I really can't speak for the university on that, although let me say that I did hear that as of next year, and I'm not sure whether it's the state or county, that the height restriction is going to be raised. So that may take care of that problem.
I thought it was a township height restriction,
Okay.
but
So then it would be up to Radnor Township. Yeah.
But let me say that if the county went for, we need to make allowances for the addition of solar on buildings that are at maximum height according to the township rule, then that's a whole conversation. And I see one of your long-term goals is to influence our zoning code so that there was a carrot for putting on a solar panel or a special variance for being allowed. What happened is in the CICD, it's the parking garage, it's sort of in the middle of the campus next to the railroad tracks. And the township made them put 2 more levels on the parking garage because everything in the township zoning code is determined by the number of cars. And so they went to 35 feet, and then they wanted to put 8 feet more for solar panels, but that's 8 feet over the zoning thing, and somebody said no. So that's a long-term goal to influence the township zoning to come into the 21st century and see the benefit of adding something in the code that allows for solar. But I agree with you. Penn Med, I'm sure those the parking garage and the parking garage that Brandywine is building, I am sure they're up to height. The piece of adding if you have parking on the roof, the piece of adding a solar panel is you protect from heat. You never have to shovel it because the snow falls on the solar panel and melts. So it actually lowers the cost of maintaining some of this. So there are some advantages to having solar. So that is, that is a, not immediate maybe, but a longer-term goal to influence zoning to allow for solar in the future.
Well, I see it kind of as a political thing, too. If we are trying to get the attention of public places of learning, I think if we are visible at a township meeting discussing variances, and we have the backing of a significant number of people in those public education institutions, then we have a relationship, a positive relationship there. So is there something already in the works that Ready for 100 members are going to be active in this area?
I would say, no, there's nothing in the works. It probably makes sense to have a conversation with Bob Z and talk about what the situation is there. And then my only other thought is, I don't know what if any of the information out of the Delaware Valley Regional Planning Commission around municipal ordinances and you were saying bring them into uniformity, Jim. But I don't know if there are any ideas there that would be useful, but probably a conversation with Bob would be the first step.
I guess the suggestion is that any discussion of variances for one particular stakeholder is probably best done, against the backdrop of we have a framework in place and a plan for the township. So then
Right.
we can point to, hey, it's part of the plan, not you're giving a variance to someone who asked the
no.
right way,
Right. Well, certainly this building, I don't know if this building has a height problem too. So, no, this isn't, we're talking about this because this is an easy subject to talk about. The goal is very clear cut and the process more or less is well worked out. No, obviously we got to talk about the sources of energy, electricity besides solar, that is going to be present in all the buildings that we're talking about. And again, I guess we have to decide, are we going to focus on public institutions first, and which ones? We're talking about education institutions, talking about municipal institutions, people with big buildings, makes a lot of sense. I guess Penn Medicine is a private institution, but they're progressive, I would think, and don't want to be behind the times. That's just that's a kind of breaking out of the public institution target and going with a private institution that has heft.
Well, I think we should include churches as well, because there is a
Right.
there is an organization of faith groups already
Certainly.
that are very interested in this
And there's,
in this
there's
topic.
at least 2 examples I know of who have implemented solar panels and energy audits of their own.
I think I heard the word community, so I think all buildings within the township are on the map, and I guess the goal of any planning process that we either undertake or we contract for, the goal is to consider everything and then some scheme for prioritizing and mapping it out over 10, 15, 20 years. So.
Right. Now, I was thinking about the easy-to-pick fruit first, and that would be the municipal and other public institutions, but certainly going for private homes. And
Yeah. A suggestion is, I think, which I think was lodged, is maybe we need a plan for the plan, and maybe we need, I'm personally new to all this,
so am I.
township government participation, so,
Right.
and I'm meeting you all for the first time, so I guess we need to figure out how to govern ourselves, right? And how this is maybe a heartbeat for how often we'll meet, and some goals. I think I heard a goal of maybe by midsummer, we understand how we're going to ask, solicit RFPs or put out an RFP. And then the goal is at the end, by spring of next year, we're going to have a plan, right? Maybe provided by a contractor. So I guess we have to establish some kind of pattern of operating
Right.
To hit those marks.
Well, as I think it's been already mentioned, Sarah, in our thumb drive are RFP examples. So, but I guess another question is Radnor Township, is there anything unique about it that we should be aware of? That, for example, Chester or Phoenixville?
Well, I think what we're suggesting is that the evidence that's in the heat maps and discussions we've had with Bob Z. And with Steve Clark from PICO indicate that there is maybe an outsized opportunity that could be low-hanging fruit with investing in efficiency in the municipal buildings, maybe choosing some, but we're just suggesting to you that incorporating that more robustly in the RFP may make sense, since that's clearly a real need, and the time is now. Some of the investments the township will be making need to be done. They're replacing part of this roof, I think, and so anyway, we're just suggesting that adapting it for Radnor, the RFP for Radnor, probably is an opportunity to underscore the
In the
efficiencies.
municipal buildings, you're
Yeah.
saying?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that will show the individual residents, and assuming that we can make the savings, the investment and then the savings.
Right.
That's sort of an immediate illustration to the commissioners, the staff, the other organizations, and the residents. Look what they're doing. It's
Right.
It's more efficient, and we don't like to use the word saving money, but
No,
if the
say
township can
it. No, it's
grow,
economics.
people will
It's
listen.
all economics.
yes.
I
I
think,
mean, being good only goes so far.
I agree with you. I think we had so many good ideas. I'm just feeling a little overwhelmed that there's such a scattershot here. We really, as a group, there are not very many of us, and this looks like a huge undertaking, that we need to set up priorities first about what it is we want. What are we looking for? Is it efficiency first? Is it solar panel?
Right.
Is it municipal buildings?
Source of energy, green energy.
Sources of energy.
yeah.
I mean,
Or
we're
electricity.
just sitting here for the first time,
Right.
not knowing anybody. So I think we need to sort of step back and figure out where we're going first.
The impression I got, and I could be completely wrong, it's happened a couple of times before, that the organizations that we would hire with the RFP would have those answers, that they're the experts, really, in this. And so, and I am kind of I need rules. And so I think what we need to do is spend some time with the thumb drive, and then come back and look at how we might design an RFP for Radnor.
I second the motion.
Yeah, and then go from there.
Yeah, I think that's a really good idea. I think we have to keep in mind, what the resolution was that our council passed. And then the RFP for Westchester is 5 pages. I mean, it's not, you know, a 100-page document. So I think, you know, if you read it over, you can see where with some wordsmithing, some places we can substitute. And I do like the idea of including the information about the energy audits and that kind of thing, and what the recommendations were from those. And those are all in the thumb drive. So, you know, when I saw the thumb drive, I was a little intimidated. I thought it was going to be 9,000 pages, but they're not. You know, it's all manageable. So I think that is a good idea. If we all take a look at it and come back together, we might even want to ask a couple of people to draft an RFP so that we aren't all sitting here trying to, you know, find the right word.
Just on that point of the RFP and how you could craft it, I encourage you to look at the Cadmus proposal and perhaps some others where I think I wonder if this is available. I can get it for you where they laid out their costs and says, basically, we'll manage a public workshop, that's $5,000. So if you don't want a public workshop, that's $5,000 you can save. So you might want to look at that menu of things that they're charging us for and see how you can then modify the RFP to take out those things that you don't think are worth. Okay?
And we didn't include that, I think, so we can make sure that we get that to you,
Yeah, we'll get it from Jim.
their response.
Now that I think about it, our leader in this effort, which was a township manager, specifically asked the proposals providers to separate their text proposal from their finance stuff, so that the committee that was reviewing would analyze the content and not look at the financing until after we had picked our best one or three. Yeah, does that make sense? But I have those number files for you.
And you actually went with the regional plan, and so I guess we need to think about whether, are we going Radnor, just Radnor? Are we going to try and
There's some homework to do first, right,
yeah,
as part of
try
that.
and include some other people in there, because it will be expensive. And,
I have a process question. Are all meetings that are conducted by this committee in this format, or?
I think you can say you're having a meeting
Right.
so that it's an open process, but you can sit in a circle.
Part of me
down
wants to be near a whiteboard or have a laptop or, you know, like
Right,
a working
right, no.
session versus just feels very formal to me.
We'd like to have public meetings periodically throughout the year, maybe 2, 3, 4, something like that to show progress. But no, it's important to have it announced that you're going to have a meeting. And that way, if someone wants to come and be the public, they can come, but it can be much less formal, and it can be upstairs in outside Bob's office, which is a series of tables in a circle with a whiteboard. And the other thing I wanted to suggest for you to think about is the RF 100 in Philadelphia and suburbs. I think Chester County is in it. They're using a program called Slack, S-L-A-C-K, to communicate with each other. It's full of resources from Southeast Pennsylvania. And so you can see what Haverford's publishing. You can print up, but you're not trying to fish it through your email, which can do it. So it's just a suggestion. If you want to do it, I just enroll you, and then you're in, and you can have an RF 100. In fact, we have one already, RF 100 Radnor Township, and it has our resolution on it. You can put anything on it you want, and it might be a way to supplement, and when a message comes that you're going to work out, on your phone, there's a phone version, or your computer, you get a little ding, ding, ding that says somebody sent you a message. And the other committees seem to be using that, and the Ready for 100 statewide is using it also. So it's just a fountain full of information. So it's not necessarily, you could use Google Docs if you wanted to, but it seems to be moving people who are in the Ready for 100 area. So that's just something else for you to think about.
And then the other resource is the one Jim mentioned, which is the set of subgroups that are working on planning, toolbox, municipal policy, et cetera. So we can, does the green team need to be shared by you with that access, or how does that work?
I'll send you.
Great, perfect.
Great. Any further questions? Take
And then
a
I just
deep
wanted
breath.
I just wanted to note.
When do we meet next?
I guess the only other thing is if we would be happy to try and help recruit additional members, if there's some skill set that you think you want to have, or you can think about that and.
I don't think we know yet.
Yeah.
Well, that's right.
Yeah.
This is not a 3-month process. Hopefully, you're going to come out with a 1, 5, and 10-year goal.
Okay.
What about students from either Villanova, Eastern, they all, have such a higher level of technology, of understanding, and especially in engineering and that field.
Well, I know that Liesl Schwartz, who's head of sustainability at Villanova, is more than ready to help whenever possible. She's about to have a baby, so she's going to have her hands full. We've reached out to Eastern and to Cabrini with very little response so far.
I could be a conduit to Villanova because I'm a collaborator with the head of the sustainability program there.
So there we are.
I mean, if my son lived here, he'd be perfect.
Well, and Ruth Levy knows him. Dr. Tolan, Richard Tolan, is with Mainline Health, and they're bringing the whole issue to the hierarchy of Mainline Health to adopt Ready for 100, who, interestingly, are waiting to see what the American Heart Association does. But Dr. Tolan said to me, just keep firing information to the head of Mainline Health. You will catch them at some point. So the same thing, and David Falcone is the attorney for both Mainline Health and for Penn Med, and he lives in Radnor Township, and he's very, very interested. So it's just a question of, sort of like an amoeba. We're just going to encompass people as we go along. We don't expect to build this arc in one day.
I don't know if you'd want anybody else from the high school, but I know you've met Becca. I'm sure Becca would be more than happy to help, and she's been following their Ready for 100 process.
I figured if the night came that you were too busy, Becca would step in.
Yeah, of course.
That's what's Becca's father's name? He was head of the school board.
Eric.
Zajac. So there's another tie-in to the school and the schools.
Just let me know if you would like me to get her, because I'm sure she would want to.
Well, it's for you all to really discuss and deliberate about how large a group. We thought this was a great initial group, and then we thought it would be good for you to just see who you'd want to have. Possibilities might be a builder or a contractor, someone, specifically in
Green building.
in green building or energy contracting.
And the other piece of it where frankly we need some help is we invited the Wayne Business Association to come in. And I'm not getting a response, so I think it's going to take some people, talking to them, because it's very important that they be part of this. But so far, I've spoken directly, telephoned, email, sent hard mail. So that may take time to get them in. And we did ask a green builder to be part of it, but he demurred because he's starting a really big project. We also asked one of the tarp arborists in the township to be part of it, and he demurred because business is too good. So, but it's not to say that you couldn't tap into them for a small piece of it when you wanted to.
And also, those were just our ideas.
Yeah.
You all would want to look at what your needs are.
I guess, again, an economic carrot is conservation. If you're having a hard time getting the business association's attention, I mean, Chuck Marshall at our church introduced me to Orange Solutions, and they basically increased the energy efficiency of my 130-year-old home, basically by putting a styrofoam cup on top of a paper bag, but still, it made a big difference. And if they work in the commercial field, they could certainly provide information on how each business or a typical business could increase efficiency just by insulation alone. So a lot of the buildings here are 100 years old. No insulation in the ceiling, probably.
Well, and that's an example of something that could be, we might be able to arrange for some kind of a community educational program that invites a couple of those kinds of outfits to present their approach and give a few examples of their work and maybe build some more awareness about the opportunity and hopefully affordability.
If you do get in communication with the Wayne Business Association, would you be open to sort of expanding it a little bit and focusing on conserving and using less plastic or giving out less straws or something like that in addition to what we're doing for climate change?
Well, I would just note that, I mean, it's really probably a question for the Green Team. How do you want to engage with the Wayne Business Association? If they don't really have the bandwidth to have someone join the team, it seems very important. They're a big stakeholder in the township, and so figuring out how to engage them, it may be going to them to have that conversation is the first step. And it's up to you all as to the focus of that. I would imagine, though, you may want to sort of stick to the central focus for the team, but certainly their customers are beginning to be very aware of the plastics concerns.
And
That'd be my thought.
just know, Ally, that the EAC itself is poised to bring no plastic bag, no plastic straws unless you ask for them to the Board of Commissioners. It has to go through the Board of Commissioners first. And I would think by fall they might have that ready. And Laura Luker from the Radnor Conservancy and Roberta Williams from the League of Women Voters are also working on recycling. So there are avenues out here that you maybe don't have to make your focus. Know that there are numerous groups all working towards the same end, but it doesn't have to be a focus of this committee, because Radnor Conservancy, League of Women Voters, and the EAC are working on it.
Thank
And
you.
then they have to convince the commissioners to do it. And that may be the rub. It may mean getting some people to come to meetings and make public statements and show the commissioners initially the commissioners, that there's a movement behind this. We want this to happen.
I think that's really important, having people come to meetings, because it really does make a difference if there are a lot of people in this room. And having students here, and especially having students make a statement, we have found is really impactful on the commissioners. So that's a very important thing to do.
Well, we're at time.
Yeah.
Oh.
You want
Laura,
to say
got-
something, Laura?
Hi, I'm not just a public person. I do have the Radnor Conservancy's interest in heart with all of this. I'm on the board. My name is Laura Luker, and I wanted to just give you a couple things. First of all, the Conservancy wants to be part of this in a side way. We are able to help with primarily with the outreach piece. Our abilities to reach out to our database with information and education is one of the tools that you guys could use with us. We do not have a lot of an energy understanding, so it's not our wheelhouse. That's why I'm like, let's get the students, the people who are getting their PhDs to really know how to use analyze all of this energy and the financial piece of it all. But the other piece I wanted to just say, because Allie, we do work with you guys. We have some interns coming in on the summer. We're working with a couple recycle projects. We all kind of work together on it. So hopefully we'll be hitting up through the high school support, which is huge, and getting you guys to come to these meetings, getting your friends to say things, because this is the only way it's going to really come up, is getting them to talk to their parents to come to the meetings, and then they start to look at the research and figure out we need to change our energy plan. And so best if we kind of tap into the youth, and if you guys and your workings together, and whoever is going to be kind of coordinating this is what I'm a little worried about getting here. You can contact the Conservancy. Gretchen Grobel is the executive director, and Lorna Atkinson, who is our new president of the board, and her kids are at Radnor. So there's a lot we can help. So I just wanted to kind of introduce myself and interject on it. But the biggest key is what you were saying, is we need to be conserve. Everybody needs to do less. None of this is going to be good unless we start to lessen our footprint in all manners. And that's the educational piece that we are trying to get across with the Conservancy. We just love to spend here.
Yes. And we also have a database of about 255 people who were Sierra Club members in Radnor Township who would accept news by email. And then there were all my friends who were members of Sierra who lived in Radnor who didn't want to receive it by email. And Robin and I reached out to all of them. And it's winnowed down for those who really weren't interested. So in addition to the Conservancy and the neighborhood groups and the commissioners having their database, yours and ours, I think we can really begin to reach people. And if it's just me who goes there, I'm going to Highland Avenue on the 24th of August to reach out to that community. Because one of the things we want is justice and affordability, and we can't afford to not reach out to the communities that maybe are not quite as affluent as other people, and most of this is letting people know that there's a possibility. Oh, you mean I could do whatever? And so it's an educational process.
I'd like to just, we're about ready to end the meeting. It does seem we need to get ourselves organized, and I'm seeing we have the question of who who's going to be on the committee, who do we need, what is our focus. You know, before we start outreach, we need to figure out our priorities and our focuses. You know, maybe there'll be a couple of them. We need when our meeting times are going to be, you know, and where. I mean, are we going to have a regional focus, or are we going to be Radnor? How are we going to do that? And then our outreach and our collaboration. I mean, those are sort of beginning, how do we do this? What's our baby step? And so I would propose that we figure out when we're going to meet, and then we can tackle some of these other questions in a more friendly, easily accessible.
Right, I think that's a good agenda for our next meeting, and so I think what we need to do is come up with a date. Yeah.
If this day and time works, could, a suggestion is to make this a recurring meeting of whatever people's bandwidth can support. Bi-weekly, monthly. We might have to meet more frequently as we get our wheels on the track, and then, I don't know.
Well, Thursday nights are fine during the summer, but then there's choir practice in the winter.
I feel like there's a long path between, I can't even see the winter at this point, but,
Right.
yeah.
So Thursday night.
Yeah, Thursday night doesn't work very well for me, but,
Well, you know, what are best dates? What are the best evenings for, let's just start.
How about
What are your best evenings?
Tuesdays?
Tuesday.
yeah, Tuesday would work.
Same time?
Tuesday evenings,
Yeah.
same time at 6:30.
6:30 to 8.
6:30 to 8. And
And this is, you know, this is like right now, and things can
Yeah,
be
right now.
tailored as we,
Right.
you know.
Looking at the calendar then, Tuesday, about 4 weeks away would be the 25th. If you want to do it sooner, well, it'd be a week and a half, would be the 11th. I don't think that would give people enough time to do preliminary work. So the 18th or the 25th. I'm going to be away most of the summer, and I'm saying that with a huge smile, but I'm available by a Zoom meeting. If somebody brings a laptop, I can just Zoom in. So that's not a problem, but I will be away.
I will also be away for a portion of the summer. I think I'm leaving the 16th of June, and I will be in contact. You can reach me until I believe maybe the 21st. And then I will be hiking away from my phone, so I will not be able to be reached until mid-July.
So, Ally, if I have your email address, I can send you the Zoom link, and we can Zoom in together. But when you're hiking, enjoy being technology-free.
Thank you. Would you like my email?
Yes, here. You want to write it here?
Did we give them their contact information on
Am I here in 2 weeks from Tuesday?
No, we didn't. That's
that's the
the
first thing we need to do.
This
that's the 11th, or Tuesday from
The
yeah, that's
11th
the
of
11th.
June?
That's not going to work.
I'm going to struggle to be prepared.
Okay, so 2 weeks from next Tuesday.
So that would be the 18th. Does that work? June 18th?
I will probably be able to take a call.
That works for me.
And let me
Okay.
just note, I think we have all your email addresses, so we can just send that list to you. Sorry if we didn't do that.
We didn't send it as a formal list. The last email, I didn't blind copy it at all, so. But I can prepare a thing and send it.
Well,
I can't do the 18th.
can you do the
I
25th?
can do the 25th, but, you know, that's.
Can
the one.
I think it would be important for us to try to all be together
I think
initially.
so.
I could have my friend who is also involved. I could have her come.
Yeah.
Okay,
Becca
so,
could-
okay.
Yes.
So we'll do the 25th?
Sounds good. Do we have to do anything to arrange to be able to get into the building?
No, I'll take care of that.
All right, thank you.
That's my gopher duty.
Okay.
And are you two available on the 25th?
I am.
I am probably not, but you'll be here.
But I'll definitely be, I'm not going anywhere. I've got 4 gardens to take care of this year.
Great. So we meet upstairs.
That's arranged for us to meet up outside of Bob's office. It's a less formal situation. It's at tables, so you can do whatever you want.
And this building has Wi-Fi?
Yes.
And, okay, so that,
Yes.
And so, Jim, you'll send us the proposal and also I think we just have the one RFP. So that's the.
I think, Jim, they're talking about what Cadmus agreed to do.
But it's the RFP that Cadmus responded to,
Yeah.
so. Great.
But I thought you said that you could send us the Cadmus proposal.
No, we haven't.
No, we have the RFP. We don't have the proposal. Thank you.
I think to help this is a giant mouthful, there's lots of little stuff bubbling around that may not seem obvious. My strength is talking to people individually. So I have 2 guys in Garrett Hill who are younger. They're in the insurance business. They've got a neighbor who's put solar on the roof. They sat down with him and talked to him about it and saw the quality of it and what's happening with his electric bill and et cetera, et cetera. And they almost are ready to be ambassadors. So I think that a lot of this is conversation that gradually it will come together. I know in the recycling and the plastic bag business, the last several times I've been at Giant, they're asking me if I want a bag. They've modified some of the checkouts so you can bring your own bag. They're saying to me that since Christmas, 60% of the people they're guessing who come through the lines are bringing their own bags. I think because what's in the news and the technology that's developing, that there are people who are curious and really want to have all this happen. It's just not come together as a body yet, so I wouldn't be too terrified of it. I think it will happen, and it may happen in very small ways from lots of different directions. Okay? Thank you very much for your bravery in stepping forward.
Thank you.
We really appreciate it. And we're here to support you any way we can. That's good. Here's a box. You can just put them in the box.
Good meeting you all.